wash my soul in the ocean, in the tears of God, I let it go.
Hello my astrology friends and family, these are your 2023 video horoscopes that I create for you every year. I'm so excited to be making them again. This is work of love for me. I put everything in it for 2-3 months while I work on them. And this is the intro to tell you how to work with this information that I'm giving to you so you can make the best of this. Because I don't want to just talk about generic signs. If you're Aries, I'm going to give you degrees so you can see specifically if a planet or transit will affect you. So the first thing you have to do is go to some birth chart calculator. You can use mine at astrolada.com, or you can use any other like AstroSeek. Enter your birth detail, and it's best if you know your time of birth, the minute and the hour. Then once the chart is generated, look below in the description of the chart, find out ascendant, sun and moon. Ascendant, sun and moon symbols or signs, and write the sign and the degree of the ascendant, sun or moon. If you don't know your time of birth, use just your sun sign, because sometimes the moon sign also changes within those 24 hours. So those of you without a birth time who will be working only with your sun sign, you can get a lot of information about yourself. But do write not just the sign of your sun, moon, and ascendant, and it will be best to listen to the 3 of them, of course, if you can, but write also the degree. Say sun in Taurus at 20 degrees, and even the minute if you can, and 15 minutes, but at least the degree is good enough for us. And write those down. And start, if you know your time of birth, by watching the video for your ascendant sign. Because this is the actual physical body, the ascendant sign, your destiny that you're walking on in this life path. And the ascendant sign is what rises on the eastern horizon when you are born. This is where your soul enters the physical body through that direction, if you believe esoteric knowledge. And that's what that sign set in stone, the path in your life. So the events that are most physical, most karmic, most set in stone, let's say, are usually indicated by the ascendant sign. Then the second most important sign is the moon, especially if you're a woman, and especially if you're born at night, even more so. Like I am a female. Depends not what you identify with in this case, depends what you are born genetically with, let's say. So if you are born in a female body, the moon will be very important for you because it rules the female health and the emotional world. And if you're born at night, for example, for me, my moon sign in Leo is always very correct because I'm born at night and I'm a woman. Born at night means after the sun has set or before it has risen. So if you see the sun in the chart of your wheel, that is below the line, the horizon, the straight line, you're born at night. So make sure you listen to your moon sign. And the moon sign is especially important because it describes how you perceive with your inner reality, with your soul, what is happening. Many times people would identify with the moon sign predictions even more than the ascendant sign because we're subjective beings. Since the moon is the soul, we're soulful beings. How the moon is the mind as well, interestingly enough, in astrology. So how you perceive your reality will be indicated by the moon sign. If the ascendant sign, certain things are happening in the material realm, but you might not be so attached emotionally because, say, with your moon sign, something else is happening. You might feel it much more strongly, like the theme of that year, because your emotions are centered on the moon sign, and something even small that happens, you can make a lot more of it because you're emotionally focused on that. While with the ascendant sign, it's something that is kind of preordained, and say sometimes even movies indicated in regards to the moon sign. You can experience it as the most important event of the year, or something very emotionally charging, life-changing. But from the ascendant sign, if a moon is indicated, it can still happen, but you find it like it may be a big deal, but you'll be like, oh yeah, we moved. And then check your sun sign. The last thing many people, especially born during the day, or males born in the male physical body, or especially even women who are very driven, ambitious, will also associate and see a lot of what's happening through the sun sign. The sun sign gives us the most free will. The sun sign indicates what we hope for, what we really, let's say, our goals and drive. So it's the one that we can influence the most consciously. So it's interesting to hear your sun sign as well, because you have most say in the sun sign of how things will go, and you have most say of it can feel very with it can feel whatever you achieve there, whatever is happening, as very self-affirming. The sun is the spirit or the ego, the most core sense of you. So again, it will show a lot of important events that happen, especially if there are other planets in your sun sign. For example, I'm Aries sun, but I have 3 more planets, Venus, Mercury, and Mars in Aries. So it always affects me strongly from the sun sign as well. And the sun is consciousness as well. The sun is pure consciousness, not so influenced by emotions. And that's why, again, we say there is more free will there. You can use the horoscope from the sun sign as a way to, where can you affect things the most? Where can you put your energy in a way where you're going to see it going in the direction you want? And it feels very satisfying after that. It's like fulfilling certain goals. All right. So yeah, if you can watch the 3 of them, great. If you can't, just at least make sure you watch your ascendant sign and whatever you feel more drawn to. If you're a night person, the sun, the moon. If you're a day person, born during the day, the sun. But I would recommend listening to the 3 as giving most importance to the ascendant sign always, because it's the most tangible events that happen. But if you are here to understand more emotionally how you're gonna feel, what will be the focus of your mind and your feelings, again, the moon sign is very pivotal. Another thing, so yes, check out those 3 signs. At the end of each video or throughout the video, I'll be giving specific degrees. So if I say, oh, Saturn will be in Pisces this year, well, not all Pisces will feel it immediately, because Saturn will be in the first 7 degrees of Pisces only. And if you see, oh, my sun is at 28 Pisces, 28 degrees, well, you're not going to really feel so intensely Saturn, but I will give specific degrees and what you're going to start feeling like it's happening. And so that's how we're going to work. We're going to see the most important influences by the planets. And to be honest, this year will be extremely interesting, 2023, because so many planets are changing signs. Saturn is changing sign. It does it only once every 2.5 years. Pluto is changing signs, and does it once every 15 to 30 years. And this time it will change sign for 20-something years. And it makes such a huge shift. You'll see collectively the world will shake up. When planets change signs, moving from one sort of energy to another, there is collapse of old things, birth of new things, but it's very shaky. Even the Vedic ancient astrologer said when the sun is changing sign, which would happen every 30 days, not to start anything big, because it's like the adjustment of the layers that's happening. So I'm not saying we're not going to be starting new things, but we'll have to, because the energy is changing so much. But it might take years until we're able. So Saturn is changing sign into Pisces, Pluto into Aquarius, Jupiter into Taurus, and the nodes are moving in Aries. And by the way, not too scary, but when there is such big shifts of planets, the last time Pluto changed sign was in 2008. Remember what happened then. So it's going to be a fascinating year. Mercury will go retrograde only in earth signs, and the earth signs are connected to dealing with and arranging our material and survival, anything for the physical body, for money, for work, for material matters. There'll be a huge focus on that. Around the world, Mercury goes 3 times retrograde in earth signs. And Venus is going retrograde this year. It's better than Mars going retrograde, by the way. So it will be, and eclipses, of course, we're going to have normal 4 eclipses. Nothing compared to 2020. in extreme, in energy, but still a lot of new redirection. And for many people on a personal level, this can be very relieving, because one set of problems that you've dragged for years suddenly you can be liberated from them. In a sense, your consciousness and focus will move from there. And when you don't put your consciousness on something, those problems dissolve. But a new set of challenges will appear, or a new set of tasks, and a new set of, let's say, of consciousness evolving focus that will that will manifest in many of us. And before I start, as always, I would like to do a little prayer with all of you that are watching here, so the collective energy can generate the best results for all of us. If you don't mind joining me with whatever higher power you believe in, or if you are agnostic, it's the universe maybe. No one who follows astrology is fully agnostic. They believe in a conscious living universe in some way. I personally am esoteric Christian, but I welcome you to, your deity, your saint. Dear Divine Mother, dear Divine Father, dear Christ consciousness, all ascended masters, all spiritual hierarchies that are working for the upliftment of humanity, our personal guardian angels and departed loved ones that are working from the higher dimensions for the improvement and betterment of the world and our own personal life. I summon you and ask you to guide us through this adventure, the year 2023. Everyone that is present here, let them hear exactly the information they will need to make the best of what is coming, to prepare and to meet the coming new energies with the highest vibration. And whatever challenges are coming, God, please let us be able to transform them to the highest good of everyone involved around us. And whatever we can change, to accept it humbly and be thankful for our destiny, whatever it is. Bless everyone who participated here, the whole world in 2023, this new era that started from 2020. Help us do the highest good we can and fulfill your will rather than our own will. Help us align our will to the divine will so everything in our lives can flow. And give me, God, the right information, the purest information, that everyone who needs it to connect to the right peace for themselves and to have healing through those videos, through that information, and answers to many of their questions. Amen. Let's begin. Aquarius rising sun or moon 2023. Here we come to Aquarius. I'll be a bit partial because this is my rising sign. But I'm not going to be easy on you guys. I'll hold you high to standards. But I'll give you the positive perspective as well. But I have a lot of good news. The most important thing that's happening this year that will bring relief to a lot of Aquarians is that Saturn will be moving out of our sign. Actually, Saturn entered our sign Aquarius around 2020, around April, and it's been pretty much all the time inside our sign Aquarius. And that's one of the more karmic and testing times, whether it's your sun, moon, or ascendant. Usually the moon, for the moon and the sun is even more intense than for the ascendant sign. But everyone might have felt it in some way over the last 2-3 years with planet Saturn, the planet of karma, the planet of consequences, the planet of maturation, the planet of obstacles, the planet of maturity and consistency being in our sign. So it's been one process that continues till March the 7th, 2023. So we have still 2-3 months under the influence of Saturn. And there were a lot of gifts that we worked hard, that not exactly gifts, but we worked hard for them, that Saturn required from us, but also a lot of challenges. And let's recap and say what you still can do till March the 7th, while Saturn is in our sign. So every one of you felt it. The earlier born Aquarians, earlier degrees maybe felt it in 2020, others in 2021, others in 2022. If your ascendant is Aquarius, maybe you've been feeling it the whole time. But even with the sun and moon
While Saturn was in our sign, it was quite intense, but it's especially difficult when Saturn passes exactly the degrees of your sun, moon, or ascendant for about a year. It's a period of either health issues. Sometimes if you've been living less healthy, usually health problems show themselves. Or usually there's some responsibility that we have to take that might feel overwhelming, restriction of movement or restriction, which many of us felt with COVID, because Saturn kind of tries and puts us in a box, tries to slow us down. So especially if it's your ascendant, movement might be limited, energy can be limited as well. And this thing, and I probably, a lot of Aquarians will nod and say, yes, I've been feeling less vital, less energetic. I don't know about you, but even already when Saturn was in our 12th house, it already started as a process. And this continues for a few more months in 2023. And especially the later born Aquarians will feel this from 25 to 30 degrees, they'll feel Saturn. What we're talking about the most, while the earlier born Aquarius, they'll start feeling an easing of those themes. So what are the themes of Saturn passing the first house? As I said, one of the things might be, especially with older, more mature people, might be health, colds, weakening of the immune system, stiffening. First, for younger people, it might be first signs or awareness of becoming older, like first white hair, or becoming more aware of wrinkles, or becoming more aware of limitations of your body. It's funny that for the first time I realized that I'm not immortal. I've always lived my life like I'll be immortal, and this lowering of energy, this lowering of access to life force, and more often health issues that I've been having in particular, have really showed me that I have to prioritize my health. The first house is about you, especially if it's your ascendant, about your health. What are your priorities? Many Aquarians maybe took the responsible actions, and some of you started working out or weightlifting or taking care of their body, something to do with health, something to do with limiting where they spend their energy, because energy is limited during that time. So we have to really prioritize. What are my priorities in life? So you have to downsize usually around that time. If you're putting too much energy in some project or in things that you realize they're wasting your energy, and you have to become clever about it, wiser about how you spend your energy, how you treat your body. If it's your sun in Aquarius, maybe it was about reality check about your career, taking on new responsibilities and authorities that make you feel, either for some of you, if you've worked very hard and Saturn transits your sun sign in particular, or even the ascendant, it's a time of claiming that authority. It's a time of taking roles of more respectability, roles of more authority or recognition even. But for others, if they were on the wrong path, Saturn transits through your sign is a great reality check. Asking you to, is what I'm doing the true thing? Is it really where I want to continue on that path for the next 30 years? Because Saturn is starting a cycle that will continue another 28 years for us. So you got a glimpse, and maybe a lot of you got the realizations of what are the things you don't want to do. So sometimes you have painful separations when Saturn transits the first house of your sun, moon, ascendant. And sometimes those painful separations, though, also lead to powerful new beginnings. So almost like starting a new chapter. Many of us had to go through that. Sometimes it's relocation, sometimes it's a new career, but the need to build some new foundations. And it's a slow going thing. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes 2-3 years. Actually, you just are starting to put the building blocks now. And while Saturn is in the first house, so maybe at least getting some idea what is a priority for you for the future, because you're going to have, look at that, 28 years till Saturn to develop something that was seeded now, to unfold it. Maybe some ideas came to you, some realizations of how you want to live your life, and so on. That don't beat yourself if you didn't fulfill them in those 2.5 years. As I said, maybe you just did the first dig of those foundations. You will have many years ahead, especially time of building is the next 14 years, and then it will be time of manifesting and reaping. But some of you might have been, for example, working on some very hard project, on something that requires, as I said, prioritizing your energy and being very consistent, very mature, learning to follow the rules. And Saturn rewards you when you do those things. You have to be lawful, you have to follow the laws of physics, the government laws, you have to follow the laws of the body, rather than having shortcuts. It was not a time for shortcuts or trickeries. And anywhere where we've tried to take shortcuts, where we've used trickeries, where we've abused our body or whatever it is, it came back to us as a realization to take ourselves in a hand with a more, as I said, accountable approach to life and especially to ourselves. Sometimes a chronic problem might have appeared. For me, it was something with the nervous system and the breathing, which is very Aquarian, of course. But thankfully, when Saturn moves out of Aquarius, life source and energy will start filling up. It's not going to be overnight. It's a gradual process. If you're later born Aquarius, you might feel it the whole, the last 5 degrees or whatever, 10. You might still feel it the whole 2023, even when Saturn is in Pisces, but with considerable less intensity. While other Aquarians will start feeling gradually from the spring in the northern hemisphere that they're gaining back more mobility, that some chronic health issues are disappearing. If you've been working hard on some project, slowly, meticulously, like Saturn requires, by following the right steps, by redoing it and doing it over again, when Saturn moves of your sign, you might start seeing the first results of that. You might start seeing the first seeds, like poking through, talking metaphorically, of course, figuratively, poking through the ground. But again, Saturn is still in the sphere that is called the Sagittarius, the sign before you, the sign of you, and the sign after you. It truly starts giving more and more visible results when it moves into the third sign from us. So we still have some work to do at Saturn in the second house. Now it's more will be about our resources and so on. But still, Saturn moving out of our sign will be a huge relief, especially people that have the moon in Aquarius. They can feel really, definitely improved mood. Oftentimes when Saturn transits the mood is a very hard emotional time. Sometimes with karmic relationships, with some separations, with, again, health issues can be sometimes. But the ascendant and the sun, they just, it's just as powerful. They're just in different ways. With the ascendant is more connected to your body, and new beginnings with the sun oftentimes more connected to your self-perception of who you are, of career and goals in any sort. And Saturn might have been blocking a lot of those things, but you'll start feeling first that more energy is coming to you. Second, that now you're a more mature person, you have more clarity where to head, and that some stiffening conditions or cooling off or coldness. I don't know about you, but I've been, as an Aquarius, and naturally my circulation is a bit weak. There is some issue sometimes with circulation. And while Saturn has been in our sign, I've been like a snake, cold, like my hands are like icicles if I'm in the cold weather. Circulation is slow because everything slows down in you. And it's only so you can take the slowing down, and you might feel like full of obstacles and ability to move forward, but the slowing down has had a purpose with Saturn in our first house, and that has been to take a deep look within who we are, what are our priorities, and to clean up house in a sense. Saturn, ultimate word for it is a cleaner, to clean up our game, our health, to clean up our career even, to structurize, to streamline, to make more efficient, and to simplify. Sometimes if you're doing too much, it's important to simplify and to direct the energy. So hopefully we still have a few months, January, February, and into March to do those things. But after that, the priorities will change, and the focus won't be so much on ourselves. Many times when Saturn transits, especially the ascendant, the Sun and the Moon are also self-planets. One is more focused on themselves and might be a bit more dour and serious and a bit negative about themselves, or very critical, or even outside. Sometimes there is critical influences that come to you from the outside to start this process of maturation, to make you look within. But you are somehow priority, whether it's your body, your goals, your feelings, if it was the moon. But the moment Saturn starts moving of our sign and goes into the second house from May the 7th, for the next 2.5, 3 years, Saturn will stay in our second house and will put some order into more practical and material things. It won't be so much in your head about yourself, where I want to go, what I want to do, focusing, but it will be more like, let's do some practical, material, financial things. Let's put order in that side of my life. Whether you want it or no, Saturn will force you. You have 2-3 years. Unfortunately, sometimes this period, especially if someone is not very responsible with resources, is more wasteful, or is not very streetwise and experienced with handling money, with handling resources, they can see consequences of that, and they can be put in a tight spot. For example, financially having limitations, and that makes you and blockages there. So Saturn slows down those things so you can be more deliberate. When a picture is slowed down, imagine on a movie screen, instead of 24 shots you see in 1 second, Saturn slows down the time so you can see each different shot and see where you're doing things wrong, or where where you've been neglectful, or where there is some mistake. Saturn likes to correct mistakes. That's one of its other, or clean up house, or correct, So it will be some kind of a master project, or mastering the material world around you. And sometimes, unfortunately, it can happen for some of us by having financial difficulties. Sometimes it can be, second house is not just about material things. It can be about what we put in our body, how we eat. It also rules food. Anything that we use as a resource. It can be food, it can be material resources. If you're an artist, or if you have a business, is the resources that, say, you make clothes. It's the material that you work with. So it's also the food that we put in our body. And if you can look back 28 years ago, when Saturn was last in your second house, if you're that old like me, I remember that was the time when I became very unhappy about how I was eating. And I was only 14, but I started doing for 3 years. I did, and we have a lot of discipline when Saturn is in the second house. Discipline with resources, with management of resources, we can do with way less resources. We learn during Saturn, the second house periods, that we can take very little resources and make them work for us. This is one of the beautiful things of Saturn in the second house. It's not necessarily Saturn wants you to be poor and to be miserable and to be restricted financially. But Saturn wants to show you, or you to see yourself, that you can do a way better use of your resources. So sometimes, what have I seen? Some people become less spendthrift. So they start saving more. Saturn in the second house really loves saving, really likes having control. This is one way, if you don't want to it's like a remedy, if you don't want to see more like external financial pressure on you, is that you take control of your finances. You know where the money goes, you keep a journal or whatever, or a log, how much you spend, for what, and you're more organized and focused on such things to know where every penny goes. That's one simple way to deal with this energy. And it's always the way Saturn learns about things is practically hands-on, not just by reading books. It's about experiencing it, practical, real life. And another way that I've seen what people do and pass easiest through this transit, that's one of great manifestation, is there might be a desire that appears for you that becomes stronger and stronger, like an imperative inside, like your inner authority telling you you need to save for something. It might be, I don't know exactly what it might, some of you might want to save for, but you want to, this is a time when people can save a lot of money, but they consciously restrict their incoming and outgoing, so they can amass for something. For example, since someone save for a house, others cut corners on certain expenses because they have a dream to study. I can give you as an example, my ex-husband, when he had Saturn through the second house, he first of all took a paycheck, a cut in his payment willfully because he wanted to be in a better company, but he had to take like probably 30% less. But it was a conscious choice, and I think there will be a lot of conscious choice for us as Aquarians because Saturn rules us. It's one of the planets that rules Aquarius. Going in the second house, I think it will be a lot of you might consciously decide, I have to take a pay or I have to save for something. And going back to my ex-husband, he took a paycheck, but he also, it was quite financially restrictful time, but he also put most of his savings and was saving very strong for education. So he invested in education. For you, it might be something else. You might be investing in yourself. You might want to save for some procedure to do, And for some of you, it might take a couple of years to do this saving. But you definitely, the call of Saturn the second is become organized, become responsible with the finances, or else if you're not, there can be some very tightening the belt situations. And sometimes Saturn wants you to restructure how you look at values and money and resources. He doesn't necessarily want you to have poverty consciousness. Sometimes we're prone to feeling like it's not enough when Saturn is in the second house. Even if you're someone who is well off financially, you might start worrying more about money, about resources, about food. You might start, nitpicking for such things and putting yourself more stress than necessary. Just recognize if this comes, this financial worries or whatever, that it's a natural process of Saturn being in the second house, and it's asking you to restructure something about how you handle resources, about how you even feel about them, because it's our second house is in Pisces, and that's an emotional feeling sign. And if you change, and Saturn can make you do slow and gradual changes by, for example, by imposing yourself self-discipline about thinking maybe every day or twice a week or whatever over this 2-year period, 2-3 years, to think, to imagine resources or finances or your financial situation and shift the feeling inside of you. Instead of thinking restriction, shift it. Saturn works slowly, meticulously with repetition. It builds up with repetition. So maybe make little changes in your financial situation, little investments. Never when Saturn is in the second house, never do risky investments. Never do risky pyramid scheme, get rich fast stuff. It doesn't work. Saturn wants to follow lawful, slow. You can't take shortcut to the top of the mountain with a lift. You have to go all around or climb there. So you need to research the laws if you're trying to make more money, to make it all, to really make your finances lawful, to really legalize it, and to get there on the long path, but it will be a very secure path. And by the end of Saturn in our second house, many of you might end up with way more secure finances. Many of you might end up with new sources of income that they gradually build and build confidence in themselves that they're able to generate from other sources. Others can end up with new how they eat, very different how they eat. As I said, second house is the house of eating, restructuring their eating habits. 28 years ago, long time ago, 27 something, when Saturn was in my second house, I started really taking attention, because I was little, money was not an option, it was not an issue to think about, but I started thinking a lot about how I was eating. And After those 2.5 year process, I really changed my eating. I went through some eating disorder during that period as well, because I started experimenting with diet. So sometimes that's also possible. By the way, Princess Diana is born with Saturn in the second house, naturally. So she first went through these eating disorders, then she overcame them. But sometimes it can be part of the process, because you see that something is not working, and then you fix it. You have many, your Saturn gives you a long time, like almost 3 years, to experiment with those things, with eating, with what you put in your body, where your food comes from. That's when I started becoming aware about, I became vegetarian during that time. I started eating, not mixing foods. Actually, I lost, that was the best, the most I've lost weight, because of how I structured my eating. I had so much willpower, and ever since I'm like, why don't I have willpower about what I'm putting in my body so much as back then? But we'll get this self-discipline now again to correct something. Some of you, Saturn is about restriction, so you can restrict some of you might eliminate dairy. Others might decide they're gonna eat just from local, they're gonna source out their food from local farmers. Others might decide to master cooking, or paleo, or healthy eating of some sort. It doesn't have to be eating disorders, the problems always. But if you're predisposed to such issues, this can escalate, but it will push you to take control over such a situation, such an unhealthy situation. What you put in your body sometimes is, not only food, sometimes it's alcohol, sometimes it's other chemical things that are not healthy for you, but you have a lot more self-control when Saturn goes in the second house. And by the way, sometimes it can be triggered by some problem initially, so you can't anymore ignore that issue. The same with finances and money. There might be some issue initially financially that appears, so that pushes you to resolve it by becoming more accountable, more responsible, and wiser, more street smart about money as well. And wisdom is having more, wisdom doesn't come overnight. And as I said, going back to finances, it's good to invest in something more secure. Saturn can rule things like properties, long-term investments, rather than something that gives immediate returns. Something that is built, that is tangible assets, rather than something ethereal, something digital, or whatever. And it's important to be some mortar and stone, or invest your money in something that doesn't get bad with time, but like fine wine, improves. It might take long time, but it proves its worth. Some of you might get interested in exploring more traditional cooking or eating, because Saturn is about the past. Others might become very restrictive with their eating, as I said, so everyone is on a different spectrum. Others can become very meticulous, like prepping meals for the week and so on. And others can. There is not only food and money that the second house rules. The second house rules your self-worth. Saturn will ask you on a deep psychological level its self-worth. How much do you believe you're worth? Your work, and so on. And do you place your self-worth on doing or on being? The ultimate self-worth is to be self-worthy just because you are, not because you're doing something. But there will be some reevaluation for some of you about your pricing. Say you're self-employed. Saturn day in the second house will make you, maybe you've overpriced yourself, and now you have to, and you're not getting as much. Some people overprice themselves and they have to change something, restructure, or maybe you're underpricing yourself, and some lessons and realizations about your self-worth will be so poignant and during this period that it would make you re-examine what worth and value you put in yourself, and what worth and value others put in yourself. And when you restructure it, when you make it more pragmatic and more realistic, in alignment with what you're offering, You might as well raise your prices a lot or whatever, but there's some financial restructuring if you're in your business, or even if you're self-employed, you might make some changes. They're very practical, but they will reflect a changing self-worth for you. Also values of all sorts will be changing for Aquarians. Many of you will start preferring more traditional values, maybe values like a throwback to your family or lineage. Others might really start exploring the values of your tradition, lineage, family, and even become very serious about, if you're a parent, about inculcating, or let's say introducing those traditional family values to your children. Because second house, another thing, because it's connected to values and family, it directly affects the well-being of the family. The second house is like a storage house, the storage of the family traditions, the storage of, if you have any family valuables as well, there might be some focus on reorganizing, working with those, your family legacy is the storage of the folkloric songs, the fairy tales that you've gathered since little, the traditions, that you had as a family. They're all very much second house connected. Second house natural ruler is Venus, and Venus rules anything valuable and a storehouse of songs and, songs and stories. It's not just money storage, you see, it's all traditions and values. So some of you might get very serious about exploring such things, getting more into them and applying them in their life. Others might become aware, like I'm becoming gradually, wow, I really don't know any songs and I really don't know much about such kind of stuff, that I want traditional things that I want to teach my kids. So I might want to dive into such things, for example. Another thing is that, for example, if you're an artist, or even if you're not, what is your preferences? I mean, Venus decides those things a lot, but also the second house. What are your tastes in food, in fashion, in art? Saturn really re-examines those. Gradually, you might feel disappointed with certain things that you've been following, like music trends as well, or anything that is with the five senses, the preferences of the five senses. Music, art, what you consider beautiful, attractive, tasty, enjoyable to touch. There can be restructuring, reorganizing of that. And actually, especially if there is too much indulgence of the five senses, Saturn tends to rein this back. I'm not saying you just be eating stale bread and water and dressing in the same color all the time, but definitely some extravagances will be cut off from anything with the five senses. And by the way, when we overstimulate five senses, if we have, because especially we as Aquarians have Pisces in the second house, and Pisces has no discrimination. Pisces has no ability to say no, let's say. It's kind of like open doors, and sometimes we can overstimulate our senses or overindulge. There is this, not for all Aquarians, but it's a trend that sometimes I've seen in people with strong Aquarius rising, sun or moon, that they might have some issues when to say enough is enough, with the five senses, with drinking, eating, and such kind of stuff. Well, Saturn, and when you overstimulate senses, whether visually the eyes, or overstimulate with taste and whatever, you lose actually the enjoyment of those things. And all spiritual traditions, they're always one of the first things they teach is limit the stimulation of the senses. That's why, like, eating less savory things, oftentimes when Saturn is there, you can really eat more bluntly, more simply, more old food, like a peasant diet. But you can, for example, remove salt and so on, or sweets, so your taste buds get revitalized again. And then if you eat a simple piece of apple might not be so tasty because maybe your taste buds are overstimulated with sugar and such kind of stuff. Or if you eat something that is not overly salty, you might not feel it. But then Saturn allows you, when it's in the second house, to rain down, to slow down on the stimulation of the senses. Is it mouth? Is it, other stuff, taste buds, the five senses? and then there is kind of reintroduction to the simple joys of life. First, you kind of limit yourself to them. There is a period that's very difficult where maybe you're like an abstinence, a period that you're not really, you feel miserable without that. And then after a few months, possibly, if you're able to do that, you feel like, wow, renewed connection to earth, renewed connection to the environment around you, renewed connection to the simple pleasures of life, especially if you've been having too complicated or pleasures that are dependent on outside sources and crutches. Saturn can help you really restructure that and change it in some way. But also your taste, as I said, in music can change. You might start listening to more old school music, or you might start listening to music. Saturn likes a repetitive drum and beats, or you might become very meticulous about your music collection, organizing. Second house really likes to collect stuff, and Saturn there might like to collect and to organize and systemize whatever collections and possessions you have. Some of you might be just that they want to throw out some old clothes, and you might do all of those things within those 3 years. Throw out things that are no longer useful and just use the most important items that you have. Not only clothes, but any possessions, any valuables, to downsize it to the things that are really a priority for you, that the things that you really use. Some people have a hoarding tendencies. Well, Saturn there in the second house can help you get rid of that and leave down to bare essentials. As I said, though, Saturn likes to save, but it has to have a practical application, not just for the sake of saving. In the second house, it has to have an end goal somehow, material reasons of some sort. So others can go through a change in their style, a change in their preference of art, of music, of taste, anything that, indulges the eye and whatever. Others might become collectors. Collectors but Saturn, they want you to get rid of certain possessions and things that you've had in your life that are just backlogging and clogging your space, and maybe bring something that you consider way more time and quality worthy. And we become more like a quality control. It's when Saturn is in the second house. We become very more critical, more discerning about not only what we put in our body, the clothes we wear. So as I said, just maybe limiting it to bare minimum, or to the ones that, say, for example, you might decide you want just organic cottons, or no synthetic fabrics, or such kind of stuff that you're going through, a food that is only organic, or food that you grow yourself. Some people can get very serious about growing their own food. Second house is very much connected to agriculture, to the living nature, to nurturing as well, and growing your own stuff. So some of you can take this very seriously, for example. So there is a lot of different ways the second house and Saturn passing. But by the way, it's much necessary, the Saturn in the second house. Why? Because since 2012, Neptune started transiting our second house. And Neptune is, let's say, it's not Neptune's place in the second house, where you have to be. Second house is material resources, and Neptune is spiritual. Second house is about, knowing where your money goes and whatever. Neptune can be about no discrimination. Second house is to discriminate what you put in your body, the materials. Neptune is like whatever comes, Well, now Neptune, and it maybe made you a lot more spiritual values, Neptune in the second house, maybe spiritualize you, but also Neptune in the second house might have been about losses financially for many people, especially if the source of income is not Neptunian. which is kind of more spiritual, whatever. And Saturn now comes to put order of the mess Neptune made. Of course, Neptune made some great things of the taste, spiritualizing, making you not so material, making you more giving as well. But Saturn says, well, now it's time to put order. What do you put in your body? What do you surround yourself with? What do you allow yourself to watch? What pictures? What you might become very strict and very concerning, very discerning about what materials you use, what food you use, what furniture you have. Very particular. That's one of the behaviors of Saturn, and you can learn a lot about such things. And Saturn comes and says, I would organize this area of life that Neptune removed all barriers around. I might do it in a harsh way by kicking you a bit in the butt, but by the end I'm finished with you. And by the time I leave the second house, you'd have consolidated your resources, have more influence over them, maybe change your taste buds, maybe change your priorities of what is valuable, what is worthy, and made you change your financial situation overall. Sometimes it might be a bit more restricted while Saturn is there, but by the time it comes out, you might, if you did it right and wisely and lawfully like Saturn requires, you might end up with a lot of saved or a lot more secure financial situation. You've got some important work. You'll be very much focused on more practical things for 2-3 years. And Saturn will be sending good aspects to your 6th and 10th house, so there's a lot of strengthening influence on your career and work and more serious approach there. While you are more focused on self, when Saturn goes in the 2nd house, there'll be definitely those practical environment, self, sustainability, self-sufficiency. It's very important when Saturn transits in the 2nd house, especially if you've been relying on others for finances or resources. When Saturn is there, you learn self-reliance, financially, but mature, and you really get a better foundation on no matter what happens, you would provide for your basic needs and necessary needs financially. If you have a lot of resources, Saturn in the 2nd house makes you revise them, maybe invest in different things, maybe restructure or invest them in something long-term goal of yours where you can put maybe a lot of money or savings to develop some project that will have materially repercussions for many years for you. They might be something you develop over those 2-3 years and adjust. That might be a source of income for many, many years. Ideas might come that are more mature from financial, material investments. Again, it might be a slow process, but you'd get there, don't worry. And you'd have, as I said, long-term consequences from that financially. So you see the focus changes, and because you're Saturn, I think a lot of those changes you do them. And 2nd house is the teeth as well. So it's a good thing to put, take better care of your teeth. Some of you might want to correct their teeth. It's like what you put in your mouth and what is inside your mouth, not just the food, but the teeth. There can be some corrections. 2nd house rules the face. So sometimes people can do something corrective to the face or try and start taking more care of their face, be more serious, especially when Saturn transits the 1st house, we start becoming aware, oh my God, there is aging. Even if you're 20 years old, you become more aware of the concept of time. And when Saturn is in the 1st house, the themes of time is running out and concepts of time and the thoughts that what is the most important thing for me to do and to focus on. And yes, I can age. Yes, I'm not immortal. I can break down too, become very obvious. And then when Saturn enters the 2nd house, a person starts living according to those realizations they have, but applying them in practical way with their food, with taking care of, the material side of the body, the face as well, and so on. All right. But of course, just be aware that there can be this, initially especially, there might be this intense feeling of worry financially or not enough, or maybe some obstacle that appears. So it can shift your It can shift your consciousness, and it doesn't might happen immediately on March the 7th. Earlier born Aquarius might feel it earlier, later born Aquarius maybe 2024, but some issue can happen with resources, finances, self-worth, so it can shift your focus onto those second house topics. All right. Then until the first 4.5-5 months, Jupiter will be in our third house. Actually, Jupiter entered our third house in May 2022 till November 2022, then dipped out again and came back. So the first 4 or 5 months, I would say the first 5 months of 2023, Jupiter will be in our third house. I really love that transit. I don't know about you, but I immediately felt it. I immediately started feeling a bit more positive, because the third house is the mind, the internal chatter, the thinking processes, and especially if you've been more negative state of mind, when Jupiter enters the third house, immediately my positivity lifted up. I started thinking more, seeing the bigger picture easier. Instead of feeling down from obstacles, I started finding the silver lining in that. So you have still a chance to upgrade your thinking into more positive thinking. It's good to read things like The Power of Positive Thinking. When Jupiter is in the third house, you're naturally drawn to such things. Funny enough, the moment Jupiter moved into my third house, even without remembering or realizing, I kind of came across a book on I forgot what his name was, Neville Goddard, an audio book, and I started listening to it, and I've been listening into it every few, once or twice a month. I would listen to a few lectures from there, and they sink in. Other times I read about positive thinking, but it just didn't click. And I was like, wow, and I understand it, and I'm aligning my thinking processes to that. So I'm hoping that you still have 4 or 5 months to benefit from this positive thinking and seeing the bigger picture rather than just what's immediately around you. It expands your vision. It expands your worldview as well. It expands your thing to plan. It's as well, third house is a house of planning, plus third house is your everyday activities. So Jupiter can expand those, can make your everyday life more interesting, more exciting, more full of adventures. Third house rules short trips. From the moment Jupiter entered last May in my third house, we started taking every weekend some adventure trip, going somewhere, because when Jupiter enters the third house, you are more willing to expand your world and to expand the activities that you do to make your life richer, your everyday life richer, more fun, more enjoyable as well. So do those things, maybe plan more, and there will be, even if you don't plan on that, there will be more opportunities for you to take short trips. By the way, any kind of trip, short or long distance or short distance, because Jupiter is also affecting the 9th house of long distance travels with a full aspect. If you can do this till the middle of May, it's good, if you're an Aquarius, they'll go well. Anything connected to taking planes or whatever, learning to drive a car, to transportation, to movement, will come much easier to you. There will be openings and opportunities, a green light for you to experience more of this traveling, or more of, on one level, third house is opening your mind through travel. On another level is opening your mind through learning and reading. I don't know about you, but since Jupiter entered my third house, I've been downloading one audio book per week, and I've been listening it everywhere. I'm cooking, I'm listening to audio books, or constantly on my third house is social media, reading articles, information. So I've been overload of information, constantly checking Telegram, checking Facebook to see the news, to see what's happening in the world. You develop more interest in the environment around you, also I developed more interest in people around me. Till then I was a bit closed off, and now I'm really enjoying being interested in people again. So hopefully Jupiter is helping you do that, but also you learn a lot more. I started learning human design I haven't learned something new for a long time, and Jupiter entering this third house, I was like, natural fascination with learning more about other systems. For you, it might be something else. I don't know what you want to learn. Sorry. But Jupiter also rules our 11th house, which is more social. So anything connected to learning new skills, to about achieving more social influence, about markets, about profitability is the 11th house, about social trends is the 11th house, politics, what's happening in the world, that can become a bigger interest, and you can take more and more information in regards to that with Jupiter in our third house. Again, the rule of the 11th in the third to the middle of the month, to the middle of, let's say, to the first 5 months can indicate expanding your social circle, meeting and allowing new people that you find more interesting, that you have more communication, people that you have interesting, that provoke interesting conversations and communications or interesting project. It's also very beneficial working in a group environment, collaborating in a small team environment. Any such projects go quite well when Jupiter is in the third house. Or if you're doing any other third house project, this is quite good. And Jupiter blesses you. If you're doing a website, by the way, I'm going to be releasing a new website, a new big IT project that I've been working for years while Jupiter is in my third house. It's not like I've planned it this way. I was hoping to release it 3 years ago, but it's just going to come together now. So anything that is online, connected to websites, connected to writing books, you can become more prolific with writing, with media work. And it can come very easy. You're communicating, speaking, introducing reports, or saying things that are important to you to others. You're more impactful and it gets accepted by others. I've almost noticed since Jupiter entered my third house that there is a flow. My thought is flowing. It's almost like channeling somehow. And it became more, Jupiter always gives natural wisdom, opens a channel to, let's say, higher wisdom. So it comes to you with writing, with speaking, to communication. It comes easy to you to do any third house activities. Managing, marketing, you have insights. What is it that, how to market, how to sell. Sales is also third house. Transactions, you can upgrade and improve transactional issues of any sort. Transportation issues you can improve. You can get a new car, you can get a better laptop, you can get a better microphone, you can, anything to do with media, with communications, with your voice being heard, with putting your message out there is very welcomed, is very good. It's like, I can give you an example. Last time Jupiter was in my third house from my ascendant in Aquarius was in 2012, I think. Yeah, 2000 was it then? 2011 or 12? That was when I released my first website, AstroLada.com, and it became overnight. I had a previous website and I changed it to this one, and overnight I started getting 40 to 50,000 people. So it was like a very quick success in media, with social media, third house rules, all of those things, to reaching to new people, to expanding. Currently now I did another YouTube channel. I'm just giving you an example from my life because it's, I don't know, maybe it can resonate with you. I opened with Jupiter in my third house, another YouTube channel, and I'm doing another website. So anything like that, third house can be great for you, and it's good to expand if you're in any business connected to third house, in sales, in communication, in transportation, in media, in marketing, in any commercial transactions, working in teams, training, teaching others, all of those, education of any sort. Your career can expand, you can move forward and have some very good results with that. Collaborating with others, you can find better associates as well. It improves your communication, it improves, you can write something, books or whatever you want, or reports, or you can get a lot of mental work done that comes to you with ease. And there is more ideas that come to you. not necessarily original. Original ideas is in the 5th house when Jupiter transit. In the 3rd is more connected to practically applicable, that ideas that you might even see them from others, but you can apply them. 3rd house is the house of self-made wealth as well. With Jupiter there, it can be a good time to start a business. I've seen it. It's very good, like to rebrand or launch. It's, you know, and I think Saturn, the 2nd house, will help you be very, even if it's initially kind of limited, if you have to rein down financially, kind of to limit yourself a little bit, it's despite of that, with Jupiter in the 3rd house, is a great time to showcase your skills. 3rd house is skills that you've learned, and self-made wealth means using your own skills to make wealth. So Jupiter would expand your courage when it's in the 3rd house. It's a house of courage, doing difficult things that you before were afraid to. Now you're much more adventurous to do them. First of all, because you look more positively at things and problems don't feel so daunting to you. So you see a lot of support here. But also 3rd house is any kind of skill. So for example, some of you might learn to knit, some of you might learn to drive a car, some of you might learn to operate, how to do videos, something that you've haven't done before. You can develop strong interest and natural, and it can come very natural to you, easily learn it. So taking any courses, classes, now is the time to do, till June 2023, basically, while Jupiter is in your 3rd house. It can improve your relationships with siblings, with relatives. Let me give you an example. It can expand your social circle, your immediate social circle with new interesting people, but also it can expand your I found out I have another brother, and I was super happy when Jupiter was in my 3rd house already. So 3rd house is siblings, Jupiter more of. And immediately we had such an affectionate and positive connection, the two of us. So that's like, I didn't have another sibling be born, but I had another sibling appear out of the blue that I didn't know about. So yay, I'm really happy. The last time Jupiter was in my 3rd house, 24 years ago when it was, my mom got pregnant, so I got another sibling. You see, it can be like that, or either your circle of friends. And I remember that was, my mom got pregnant then, so I was gonna have another sibling. He was born when Jupiter dipped back into Pisces, but came back into Aries again. So I was learning to live with a new sibling, so it was a great gain. But also that's when I've made a lot of new friends at school. That's again, your social circle can expand and so on. So for the younger people, I'm giving different perspective, and you discover passion to learn something, some skill, whatever, and it goes well. If you have exams to take, anything like that, it flows. Okay, or if you have some presentations, some important communications, you have the right way to find your voice and to do it and to learn. Okay, so enough about this 3rd house. Now let's move to May the 16th, when Jupiter will move into our 4th house, and the priorities will change from this overload of information, stimulation, learning, reading. Jupiter will enter our 4th house and will stay there the rest of 2023 on May the 16th. And will stay there part of 2024 as well, till approximately April, May again. So for a whole year, Jupiter will be in our 4th house. What is 4th house about? Now suddenly things will, well, to be honest, the North Node has been in our 4th house for some time, and it will still be when Jupiter moves there. So we've already been focused on themes of family, home, place of living. With the North Node there, I bought a property and started gardening and so on. But Jupiter will further expand and even make it even easier for some of you. If the North Node couldn't make it, now Jupiter can make you find the right home or expand your property or grow they buy lands, and you'd find the right places. It's like Jupiter makes things easy. It's like you have angelic help. Jupiter is angelic wisdom, your higher mind, and it feels like you have luck in that area of life. It's just that your vibration of the mind connected to those matters rises, and you align yourself with higher truths and with the right circumstances. It's kind of, this is the underlying how it happens, but it feels like how it can manifest on the outside is you find the right place. You find the place where you feel you belong over the next 1 year from May onwards. You find the place that it feels, well, this is home. Or you find you can expand your family with another member. You can, I remember when I had Jupiter in the 4th house last time, I moved to a nicer place to live and got a really nice housemate. It happened very easy, and she was the best house flatmate or whatever you call it. Now at this level, I'm hoping, more houses, more family related, depends what level you're at currently. If you're trying to sell a property, you can make gain, or you can make your house much nicer. Things will come easy. If you're trying to, 4th house is also connected to gardening, to the because it rules real estate, earth. So Jupiter now will work very well with Saturn in the 2nd house. They both are connected to nurturing and family. Saturn in a more material way in the 2nd house. Jupiter, you'll be getting a lot of knowledge, some of you, that you develop a lot of interest and excitement and gain a lot of knowledge about anything to do with property. Some of you might take a real estate diploma. Others might develop interest in gardening, in architecture, in home design. Others might develop a lot of interest in anything home and family related. Or if you're in any industry related to the 4th house, say you're in hospitality, in hotels, in real estate or building, or if you're in land guardianship of some sort, or raising animals, or agriculture, or if you're in a career that is connected to taking care of little kids, or it's very parenting energy in the 4th house, where you're taking care of, maybe working with small children, or maybe working with very old people, where it's kind of nursing careers, where you take care of others. Again, you can expand this business. Any 4th house business, you can expand. You can also invest in something that comes from under the ground. The 4th house rules oceans, land, things that are from the ground, and you can have good returns back, or maybe buy land. And you see, Saturn demands here you invest your money wisely in something long term. And Jupiter in the 4th house says, well, maybe a property or a land. It will come easy to you. Find the right one. And the North Node is still there till July the 17th. Actually, Jupiter and the North Node, the whole May and June are very close together. They're in conjunction. So the right opportunity can come around that time for some of you. For others, it might be a bit later when Jupiter moves further into Taurus. But around May, June, July, watch out, because this is when you can find out exactly the place for you, exactly the deal for, or maybe some opportunity there with home, with family, expanding family, adding a member to the family. For others, it can expand, you can increase your love for parenting. If you're already a parent, or for some of you, it can settle down. It's very good to settle down, it gives you an opportunity to enjoy it, to like it, to start a settled life. For others, can be, if you're a parent, it might be like really enjoying the parenting part more, learning a lot more about parenting, which it's funny enough, I'm very interested in that, to homeschool and so on. And that's like nurturing and really enjoying and feeling a lot of joy from learning recipes to cook, to take care of others, to do those more, you become like a domestic goddess type of thing. Or just definitely finding more pleasure in home activities, connecting with family. Last time Jupiter was there for me, I also developed strong interest in my roots. The 4th house is the roots, the ancestor, the history of my culture. I was reading history books all the time about the past, and reconnect with your roots and feel proud with your roots, or heal some family traumas. Sometimes the people reconnect with their land of origin. uh, improves their relationships with their parents if there was some issue before, gain an understanding of if there was some, for example, some dysfunctioning pattern between you and your parents, which manifests in your life as a repeating cycle of ancestral karma. When Jupiter enters the fourth house, you get like an aha realization and healing of such patterns. You can realize a lot about why am I acting this way? Maybe there's been always divorces in my family, or there was like why I'm on the verge of a divorce, and you can realize and heal something. Or there might have been poverty in your family that stems back to uncles, aunts. Fourth house is the bigger extended family, not just your mom and dad, but like imagine 4 generations back on every side. Others might be realize that there's like a psychological healing, because this is a very emotional, psychological house. It's the house where we store the memories of childhood, the indoctrinations and patterns, healthy or unhealthy, of childhood, especially if you have some difficult planet in Taurus, like Saturn, like Pluto. Well, can be, you need to be thousands and hundreds of years old, but or like Saturn, like Mars in Taurus, or South Node or North Node can be stressful there, or any kind of difficult planet there, and Jupiter enters there. And if you don't have to know if you have any difficult planets in Taurus, but everyone has some kind of a family karma, so to speak. Everyone has some kind of a family pattern they're dragging around, or some family issues. And you gain a lot of understanding when Jupiter enters there, and you release it, you heal it, you improve relationship with parents, even if they passed away. Some deep realization can help you heal. So there is emotional, internal healing, let's say, during this process. It might be good to explore with a psychologist your the family, the past, the patterns there. Sometimes the feelings if you want as well, but especially the patterns. It's very interesting in family constellations. That's not something you can do as well. You can have great success unearthing some valuable and healing information with family constellations and so on. But there's something very interesting that they see. For example, if an aunt of yours killed herself, and that immediately imprints on the whole family, and you're wondering why you're suffering from depression, or your mom had more abortions, or your grandma than normal, that imprints in the energy of the family structure as a message to the universe, I don't want to live. And that imprints on the following generations as inability to enjoy life, depression, and so on. And by just finding out those things, so if there is no outside reason, why am I depressed, why do I go and why do I have some addiction, or why do I have some pattern, when Jupiter enters the fourth house, you can make incredible strides just by realizing where this is a repeating pattern, or where the flow of life was interrupted. Maybe not because they're evil, but because they didn't know better. That's what they could do. By realizing this, the healing process starts, because you forgive your ancestors. Then you can make like a little ceremony. It's a spiritual process, and Jupiter is a spiritual planet. Just realizing that, and not putting all this guilt on you. And just by releasing that, as I said, you can start a emotionally healing process when Jupiter is in the fourth house. That's what I wish for you. So this is the internal side of this fourth house. Well, the external one is more prosperity and family, reconnection with family. As I said, material, like place of living, emotional happiness, and so on. This can be a good time as well from May onwards. I think I said trying to buy or sell property and so on. You'd get in touch with your inner parent as well. You'd become more nurturing to yourself and to others. You might enjoy cooking more, spending more time around, talking with close people, inviting people over as well. There can be a renewal in the relationship in the family. For example, I'm having big power struggles with some of my children. I'm hoping Jupiter in the fourth house will help me see, wow, how am I triggering that? How am I parenting forcefully, and how to be more liberate or more loving, more wise parent, So these are some of the advances Jupiter can do for you. All right. Then another thing is, oh, that's silly, I'm not gonna say it. Because I remember once I saw someone whose Jupiter transited their fourth house, and fourth house rules the breast, and they had breast implants. Okay, so I'm not saying you should do that, but it's just some silly, funny things. So this is Jupiter, what it's gonna be doing there. So plan accordingly. Know that the interest there and the opportunities will also shift. Make space for those more home-centered and emotional activities after the busy mind activities of Jupiter in the third house. More social time of Jupiter in the fourth house, less social time of Jupiter in the fourth house, but more emotionally fulfilling, connecting, like the sense of content. Like imagine this feeling, there are different types of happiness. And the fourth house happiness, fourth house rules happiness together with the fifth. The fifth is like this joy, like inspiration. Oh, you're flying, this kind of joy. You learn something new, you're excited. The fourth house happiness, more like contentment. It comes from the stomach. The fourth house rules the stomach. So you can feel this, there can be this feeling that there is warmth, that, this self-generated contentment where you just stay at home, or you just emotionally you're self-sufficient kind of feeling. And it feels like a warmth in your stomach, of coziness, of, I'm content. Well, you can gain an access to that if you haven't had. Now you can get to see how it feels. That's why it's a good time for healing of any things that are, especially that you've been doing blindly without realizing why you're doing it. And that has been this, there's a sense, they say, an emptiness. I feel an emptiness inside, and I'm trying to fill it with all kinds of stuff. Some food, some drugs, whatever, some random relationships, addictions. So there is this healing influence of Jupiter in the fourth house. So Jupiter in any of the emotional houses, basically, 4th, 8th, the 12th, where this gap in the soul that everyone has to some extent, this emptiness can be filled, can be understood where it's coming from. All right, but I forgot to mention, let's go back, retract my steps, sorry, bit of an Aquarian process, jumping around, not following a traditional timeline, but I hope you can bear with me. A huge event that's happening, guys, is Pluto is gonna enter Aquarius on March 23rd. It will be there only for 2 months till June, but we're gonna get a dip our toe to feel what it's going to be like, because that is huge. Pluto is the slowest moving planet. Pluto will traverse our sign till 2044. It's one of the longest it stays in any sign. The shortest is 10 years. This will be 20 years, almost twice as long as any other sign. What does it mean? It's starting, guys. And it will dip itself just in the first 1 degree of Aquarius. So if you have your sun, moon, or rising 0 degree, 1 degree, you definitely feel Pluto in your sign in 2023. Later Aquarians might have to wait, the later degrees, it's one of sometime in the next 20 years to Pluto to pass over exactly your ascendant, sun, and moon, but everyone will feel it somehow, even very subtly on an energetic level, that the intensity is increasing. One of the good things of Pluto is it's a very passionate planet. And it can bring, imagine Scorpio energy being brought to us. We're usually cool as cucumbers, but now imagine this intensity of Scorpio brought to us. So it's not going to be time for many years ahead for Aquarians to be just level-headed and cool. They always carry that quality, but Pluto will make you a little bit more black or white, especially the very early Aquarians. They can start seeing something that is very untypical for you, intense passions, feelings, dramatizations, emotions that are like, what the, I've just went through a lot of Pluto transits through other planets in my horoscope. So I'm like, am I crazy? What is like, when I'm this hormonal, emotional person, and the adrenals get triggered when Pluto is around much more. So there is this feeling of, sometimes if you overdo it, especially when Pluto transits exactly over those first 1-2 degrees, adrenal exhaustion. So it might be amazing time for the very early born Aquarians to start some intensive workout where they can, this explosive energy of Pluto that is trying to release a lot of trauma stored in for many lifetimes. That's what Pluto does. Pluto carries the trauma from many lifetimes, and it's stored somewhere in the subconscious, deep in the body. And Pluto, within a year or two, while it transits over its specific degree, so if you have 0 ascendant in Aquarius or 1 degree, I'm 2 degrees, so I'm very close. I'll probably feel it already this year. You start feeling this buildup of pressure, and it's like you feel like you're gonna explode like a volcano, and there might be no outer reason. Sometimes there is an outer reason. Pluto can be being put in some situations of power struggle, situations of powerlessness, or situation of total outrage of something. My Pluto transit happened when the lockdowns happened, and I spent 2-3 years of my Pluto transits fuming about what's happening in the world and being angry about something that I had no control of. I felt powerless, but I was trying to tell as many people as possible. So Pluto can also put you on a mission of some sort as an Aquarius, a mission for humanity, because Pluto is a very collective planet. So, but so there is removal of trauma. This can be very physical. It can even appear as some kind of skin things that burst, that flow. It's kind of, what's that called? Like it festers and pus and kind of, I'm not saying pustules or whatever, but sometimes it's exactly such kind of stuff that come and burst on the surface of you. Like I had my tooth, like my whole face swelled in on my Pluto transits, and it felt like poisons drained out of me. And then you feel like you're cleansed. Pluto's ultimate goal is to cleanse a lot of buried deep down pain, and it's very often this cleansing happens through some psychological, through some physiological thing, like high temperatures, like some kind of adrenal stimulated exhaustion, some kind of something bursting and so on. So such conditions for some of you Aquarius, especially the early ones, can be very intense in 2023, 24. But the ultimate goal is that it totally releases this painful things. It almost does it without you realizing what's happening. Sometimes many people go to psychology and to just keep their sanity during this process, this cleansing, this detoxing process. I mean, it's very rare Pluto to transit one sign, where it's your ascendant, sun, or moon. Many people never have Pluto transit exactly on top of their sun, moon, or ascendant in this lifetime. Might happen once every 3 lifetimes. But when because you're Aquarius, you're in for a long process of karmic cleansing. Saturn just prepared the ground while passing in our sign to make us prioritize, to become more responsible, more mature, clean up the old things. Pluto will do the really deep work. So obviously Aquarians are in turn, in whoever's incarnated as an Aquarius sun, moon, or rising, they volunteer to do a deep karmic cleanse. Lucky us. And total transformation. What happens when you pile up trauma after many lifetimes? You might have a trauma. For example, I don't have much trauma in this lifetime, but I carry such a deep pain body without knowing why. Like, pain bodies, feelings of guilt, feelings of being incapacitated. Like, you don't know, it's subconscious. Why do we have insecurities? Why do we have irrational fears, paranoias, panic attacks? It's a very Plutonic thing. When Pluto is doing the cleansing, many times such things can come to the surface. Panic attacks, paranoias can kind of escalate for a year or two, and then you're released from that, because you're releasing some kind, you're like re-experiencing on a subconscious level some trauma from the past that you can't even identify. It's a past lifetime or early childhood where you don't remember, and you find yourself overwhelmed in certain situations without a reason. That's why panic attacks, phobias, or just like really extreme reactions to things. This is very platonic. And again, you don't know why. I'm like, oh, I don't normally react like that. I've always been cool with this. What the hell? Someone tells you something and you lose it. But there is some triggers that go stemming back to things you've buried in the subconscious or even past lifetimes that are being released, that this trauma is working its way. So it's like your soul chose, I'll take an Aquarius incarnation, Aquarius rising, sun and moon at this time of history, because Pluto will be passing there. I need to do karmic release. The process is intense. The process can feel like dying. Some of you might even come close to the verge of death over the next 20 years. I mean, that's the most extreme thing. Sometimes people, if they've been really, really carrying a lot of pain and trauma, the cleansing can happen through getting a cancer or something like that. By the way, cancer can be cleansing process. You know, in the past, it was exactly how it was. It's not some kind of, it's because it takes out the poisons. The cancer surrounds the poisons in the body. And they first start from feelings and whatever, but the cancer absorbs those areas that are more poisonous. And but Pluto triggered diseases if it happens. I bet, pray to God, is not so intense, but Pluto is one of the things that can rule like extreme health issues, because it's a detoxing process. And there is a way out. It's not a death sentence, of course, and it's not like maybe just 2% will experience that extreme, because with Pluto, if you transform and change your life, it goes away. If you allow your body to detox naturally, if you allow your emotions, feelings to detox, which means releasing a lot of painful feelings and so on, and that can help you work with a psychologist. Sometimes people get into the occult a lot. People become very introspective and dig deep to understand what's happening and why they're like that. People go into esoteric studies. Pluto rules all of those things. It can be astrology, the occult, life after death, trauma analysis, understanding painful, extreme feelings and working through them, learning to ride the wave of intense emotions rather than blocking them. We have a tendency as Aquarians to block and to even trivialize a lot of our traumas, because we put it through the brain and we're like, oh, there is way worse than that, while not, sometimes to disconnect from the mind, from the heart. So, Pluto might reconnect us again with this primal side of ourselves, and to really grieve about something, to really grieve about the depths, the suppressed feelings. Maybe even something that you start grieving about, something that happened a long time ago. Or Pluto can bring some traumas from the past that you work on releasing. And after the Plutonic transit, which is usually about 2 years right over your Sun, Moon, or Ascendant, you are a cleansed person. You are brand new. To be honest, I've never had a Pluto transit, either Sun, Moon, or Ascendant. It's the first time in my life, and the only time it will ever happen. It will just happen over my Ascendant. Some of you might have passed already, either through Ascendant or Sun or Moon, depends. But it's basically after this period, your life is never the same. After this period, you're never the same. Pluto can turn your life 180 degrees. In the extreme cases, Pluto can be accompanied with deaths of close people and so on, or more experiences of death around you. But that's just one side of Pluto. There is a different vibration. It's not a law of vibration. Death is a beautiful process, but it makes you ask very deep questions and prioritize what is truly important to me. Pluto is about finding the raw truth. It's like nothing else will do. And just peeling the layers of the ego till the true essence of your spirit shines. So you'd remove so many fake layers, so many demands of society. Aquarians are very much aligned to what society wants and expects from them. Many times it's a social sign of society, whether it's a clique of group around them that counterculture, or better, it's the whole society. They always look for someone to align with. Well, now Pluto might appear a lot of layers for many of you, starting this 20-year process almost, where the fakeness is removed from Aquarius, currently for the early Aquarians, where the fakeness, and all Aquarians might start feeling like all or nothing approach when Pluto enters their sign. It's like a bit of a black or white approach, rather than, oh, everything is relative. No, with Pluto, you're asked to identify good versus evil. You know, there is no tepid energy. Some other transits can mean that, but Pluto in our sign is like you either align on the side of the whatever is good, or on the side of what is toxic and dark. And sometimes people can choose that, they really choose the dark side. Pluto periods are really periods when there is a battle for your soul. Do you choose this or this? Some of you might consciously choose, yes, I align with this dark role, I embrace this shadow, I want to do it, yeah. Others might say, no, I can no longer do that. Depending where, everyone has a role to play. And nothing wrong against shadow players. They just have to bear the consequences for that. But there'll be some kind of a self-determination of who you are, of the role you're going to play, and total dedication to one or the other roles, to certain role that one chooses. Almost one can become like obsessed in certain direction in life, in certain aspect of themselves. And because they're looking for the raw truth, they're looking to lift the veils, all the veils, to get to the bottom of it. And by the way, many Aquarians for the next 20 years might be called to some to some Plutonian career. And that would be a good thing, because Pluto is in your sign, which means that you can make big transformations there. You have the passion and direction. What is a Plutonian career? It can be something in the occult, something in the transformational fields, like a surgeon, something like a psychologist, like intervention specialist, like a drug addiction therapist, any therapist of any sorts, any fields that are about rejuvenation, any fields that are about death and rebirth, any fields that where maybe you're helping someone transition, or anyone who is helping another one transition through a big intense period in their life, like from recovering from grieving, or recovering from a divorce, or recovering from a loss of a job or career. That's why psychologists and even astrologers and occult workers. But you are becoming the alchemist. You're gonna become the magician, the alchemist, to transform yourself. Pluto is incredible willpower. Actually, Pluto in esoteric astrology rules divine willpower, while personal willpower is Mars. So Pluto is the high octave of Mars, which means that whether we want it to know, God will be, somehow the universe will make us choose if we want to follow divine willpower. And most, let's say 90% of humans are very good, decent human beings that want to follow natural evolution and do the right and good things that naturally align, that even if they've disaligned themselves from divine will, their higher self will, when a correction comes and they're very aware of it, this is what Pluto is, a correction, of realigning your own personal willfulness and will with the will of God. First realizing it, and realizing what is your truth, basically. The will of God is your higher self realigning to your true values, to your true, to your own personal truth, and embracing that role. So many Aquarians will be called to play a very important role in society in the next 20 years. It might be triggered first by some personal crisis that puts them on this journey of self-discovery and doing something that's truly profound, fully authentic for them, which is that Pluto, all or nothing. It's black or white. It's like no in the middle. Oh, maybe I'll do this. Oh, maybe let me try this. Like, no, you pour your whole soul into something. And with that direction, I'm trying to say that you might be called to some really important work. The first one, it will be personal transformation that will happen. Whether you want it or no, it will just happen, Sometimes through big crises, through big events, big changes in life. Pluto can give amazing changes as well, just not death, near death and so on. I had almost that happen, even not with the conjunction or square aspect. I thought I was dying for a couple of months. But with Pluto can do things like its death and rebirth, pregnancies. Pluto is a very fertile planet. Birth of a child. For some of them, I've seen many times women who have Pluto in the ascendant get pregnant, or Pluto over Sun or Moon. But it's again big transformation in life. Pluto, sometimes there's some other crisis-prone stuff, but it's always about putting you sometimes in a corner where there's a power struggle, or where there is a crisis situation where something has to change. You cannot just keep trying both ways, both lifestyles or whatever, or being ambivalent. No, it's like you have to determine yourself. And Pluto activates your incredible willpower. Willpower that can make miracles. Willpower that can move objects almost. Willpower that is so focused like laser. And only Plutonian events, which are kind of described like crisis events, or that are described like being on the edge events, usually master our incredible willpower. So usually during Pluto transits, and Pluto will be in our sign for 20 years, but it won't be so intense all the time, especially when it transits your Sun, Moon, or Ascendant. But you already might start feeling this energy of Pluto. So there might be some challenge or some crisis. For some people might be a very internal process. I've seen it as well. Nothing externally negative or stressful happens. Just that they internally are very aware people. These people are very I've seen it like, and usually the change that happens in them is psychological internally. And they realign themselves to some higher path, to more truthful path to themselves, and they really transformed and changed. And sometimes the Pluto transits a very quiet inner process, while inside you feel like, wow, it's a volcano happening there. Externally, nothing might happen. But many times it's accompanied by Plutonian events, like I said, life or death, or big transformations, sometimes anything big. If it's your moon with the family, big change, place of living, emotionally, psychologically, with the ascendant body. So I've seen people when Pluto transits the ascendant, for example, they really take total control back of their health, or they might be on the verge, like say someone who stopped an addiction, someone who and reclaimed their life back, like a rebirth, someone who totally transformed how they look, someone who lost 60 pounds over 2 years, someone who recovered from cancer and lives amazingly, someone who all their lives they had some illness that they told them they have to live all with them, diabetes or whatever, and Pluto comes in the ascendant and they transform totally their health and they recover from a diabetes. So Pluto can give you 9 lives, but it means there are 9 options to exit as well. But it can feel like you are reinvented, you become a new person. So you're not going to be the same after this Pluto transit, whether it will happen 2023 for you, or if you're later born Aquarius at 2042, but you won't be the same. But Pluto already in your sign can ask you to mobilize your willpower. Your willpower will start becoming much more powerful. You will start becoming way more perceptive. You'd start noticing in others the seeds of good or evil before, not only in others, but in any activities or events, whether world events or activities, very perceptive. Like you'd start noticing if something smells like a rat or if something is legit, like an X-ray to others. You're starting to realize the seeds of good or evil before they even manifest. And because you're really determining yourself which side you are on, you can stop it in the bud, and you can. But people do like the most incredible transformations, and sometimes Pluto opens the Kundalini. Sometimes there is astral stuff that happen, ghosts and whatnot. Neptune as well, but Pluto is also. Sometimes a person can develop some occult abilities. Sometimes a person, when Pluto is around, can delve so deep into deep topics, conspiracy, especially taboo topics, conspiracy, trauma, pain, psychology, astrology, the occult, life after death, anything about abuse and trauma and such stuff. It's deep, deep things that people stop being afraid of when Pluto is around, when they want and force them. Like with Pluto, you tread where angels are afraid to go. And you feel a calling to delve into those dark or deep or more painful topics. And that's a good remedy for it. If you're consciously interested in such things, it can be just that energy that you're putting there that manifests through Pluto. Maybe as a good example would be from the moment Pluto enters our sign, wear some Plutonian symbols around you. Maybe so you can, it's like a remedy. So this energy of Pluto can manifest and can be channeled in something less innocent. What would that be? Pluto in Aquarius. Pluto is any kind of serpent symbology, any kind of symbology connected to scorpions, of course, and anything connected to I don't know, yeah, that is very Plutonic. Deserts as well is Pluto. Ice is Pluto, interestingly enough. Places where life cannot exist, deserts, ice. Maybe have a painting or something connected to that in your office or where you spend time. So you can give honor to this Plutonian energy. It's going to stay with us for 20 years. But the ultimate goal for Gate is that Pluto not to destroy you, is to make you more truthful and to make you eliminate all toxic behaviors. Well, maybe not all, but everything toxic that you've been poisoning yourself with, or that you've been letting others allowing you to poison you with. And that comes from foods, it comes from what you put in your body as well. Pluto is a powerful detoxing period. And when you come out of it, you're a new person. And by the way, when Pluto is around, the magnetic animalistic attraction of the person is very powerful. They might not be aware of it, especially while the exact transit, because they're in the eye of the storm, but others notice it and they say to them, oh my God, there is this magnetism around you. So they can become sexually quite charged or even attract very Plutonian experiences like stalkers, others that obsess about them, or they can become themselves more sexual. They can have more intense sexual experiences than other times, Kundalini rising, tantra and such kind of stuff. And it's very primal, it's very physical, Pluto. It's not some just psychic process. It's visceral. It is connected, of course, as I said, it can intensify fears, especially when the transit is very potent, like obsessions and phobias and so on. But these come to the surface and they're released in some way, and that they release a lot of traumas, just like in a past life regression. Pluto also was past life regression. And someone, for example, has had pain or have always had breathing difficulties, and they don't know why. Doctors look, your lungs are well, there's nothing here. Why do you have breathing difficulties? And they have a past life regression. They see they were strangled in a past lifetime. And the moment they experience it, they're experiencing it so alive. It's like experiencing the trauma in those 1 or 2 hours of the regression. It feels so horrifying. But the moment they wake up, they no longer have this issue anymore. So it's happening a gradual, maybe less vivid process, less intense, but you can even have a past life regression or past life memories that start coming and unearthing those things for you. But it's like a more slower process, maybe 1-2 years for some of you, that Pluto can basically bring to the surface such traumas, even if you don't remember them consciously. You experience them physically, you feel you're dying, but remember this is trauma from the past. And then you are free from many fears, from many self-sabotaging behaviors, from many things that made you feeble or weaker. So the ultimate goal of Pluto is to reborn you and to empower you. Things that you are most afraid of, you usually confronted with when Pluto comes, but you win over them. And you no longer have this fear. Like I had a friend, Pluto transited her sun and her ascendant. And before, when it started transiting her sun, her biggest fear was, she was always, she had a rich boyfriend, sugar daddy or whatever, like wealthy, all her life that was taking care of her. And her biggest fear is to lose that support. Well, Pluto came, that's exactly what happened. Her biggest fear, she had no longer, so now and she felt so powerless and so lost. But the transit was 2 years, and by the middle of this transit, she started her own business. By the end of it, and still years later, still 10 years later, she became self-made millionaire within those 2 years. The biggest fear for her was about financial security, but she was giving her power away to someone to take care of her. And then she transformed it from the biggest fear to her biggest strength. So she became financially wealthy herself. So Pluto pushes us to the things that are most uncomfortable to us, to the things we're most afraid. It's almost like exposure therapy. So you're afraid of small spaces, and the therapist keeps exposing you to, pushing you in to put yourself in small spaces, or you're afraid of heights. And exposure therapy till you're no longer, till you're inured to it, or what is that called? You're immune to it. So and then you're no longer afraid of that. You're free. You're liberated from that. So think, Aquarius, what is one of the things you've been always most afraid of, obsessing and worried? Well, you are going to overcome that, or die trying. I'm kidding. Don't worry. I mean, but it's definitely won't be the same. You'll be way more empowered. You'd know yourself much deeper. Pluto is the maker of millionaires and billionaires transit as well. Pluto is the planet of bankruptcies as well. So I've seen Pluto with a transit bankrupt someone and then make them within the same 1-2 year period even richer than before. Pluto is the biggest highs, the lowest lows. You go through that. I mean, it's not gonna be constant unless you have many planets in Aquarius all over the place. But it's gonna be most intense when it passes exactly over your Sun, Moon, or Ascendant, and the first 2 degrees are starting in 2023. But if your later degrees, come back to this. I might not do such an in-depth Pluto video anymore in the following years. Come back to this to gain knowledge about it. So reading psychology books, going into deep topics. But I forgot to say another thing. Pluto will require some of you to have to become very important figures in society, role players in the next 20 years, because Pluto is wherever it passes, whatever signs it passes through, these are the people that play the most important roles in society. If you look back, you'll probably notice, if you do research, I've done it, every time whatever Pluto is transiting right now, people that have the Sun, Moon, or Ascendant are always in the news, or they play some very important role. For example, Jeff Bezos just had Pluto transiting his Sun in 2020, in 2021, and he became even richer than he is with COVID, Amazon, whatever, So such people play very socially important roles. So from the beginning, Pluto enters Aquarius. Some of you will be prepared, maybe on a small level, maybe on a much more expansive level that affects your community, or affects your whole career, or affects the whole field of your career, or affects the whole world for some of you, or your country. Everyone at a different level will start to be prepared to play some role where they can transform something around them in society. So for some, it might be just because their own transformation happens, and this is how they upgrade the collective field. For others, it might be that they play some really important social role. As I said, you already started in 2020 this process with Pluto, with Jupiter and Saturn making their conjunction that will impact the next 20 years in the first degree of Aquarius. Now Pluto comes, and I said back then, Aquarians in the next 20 years will play very important roles. You'll see important politicians or business figures or whatever, with some of the most important roles that are in the public eye, or behind the scenes. Sometimes it doesn't have to be very public. Pluto doesn't necessarily like to be very public, but you might be transforming society, and you might be so influential in your field of work or whatever. Transform that field of work, because Pluto is transformational. Pluto is another level. So you might be influencing somehow society, because Aquarius is a social sign. The social directions, you might be very attuned already from the end of March, you start being attuned to the collective energies Pluto is, it's like a radar that smells what does the economy need, what will be the next trending thing on TikTok, what will be the next trending things in the markets, what does society want, where is society going? Almost like you'll be like a psychoanalyst and profit for what's in the social trends and currents. So use that. You can enrich yourself, or you can enrich the world through this, because you're gonna have your pulse on the hand of social trends, which is Aquarius, like so penetrating and deep like never before. So I mean, you can really take that and use it to your advantage, or use it as a special gift that you have. You can even go and trying to get a job, say, if you're an Aquarius, and Pluto's already entering Aquarius in 2023, you can go and, even if you're still not at that level, say, my biggest strength is that I have my hand on the pulse of society and where trends are going. A very futuristic sign where we know where things are going. So you can really impact the consciousness and the subconscious of others, of society. Some of you might be playing very revolutionary roles. Pluto actually is the most rebellious planet. It's the most powerful planet. Actually, we put in Aquarius, the most revolutions in the world of history ever happened. French Revolution, the American Civil War. This is when, or America became independent country or something like that. So you might be called to play some role of an awakener to large masses of people, some role of to make a personal big revolution in your own life. Total revolution, where you chop the heads of the past, like no turning back. Think French Revolution. Might be bloody, but it's totally new direction, and you have the willpower to do it. Okay, enough of that, enough of Pluto. Let's go now to a bit more lighter energy. The North Node is changing signs in July, and the South Node, of course. The South Node is entering in Libra. The North Node is entering in Aries. So July the 17th, for 18 months after that, the nodes will be passing through Aries and Libra. These are not, the nodes are not actual planets. They're the moon's north and south node, where the sun and the moon cross the ecliptic, basically, of the earth. So what does it mean? Wherever Rahu goes, for the next 18 months from July onwards, you develop a lot of passion. So it will continue the theme. Jupiter was expanding your mind, making you more positive, wanting to learn new things while it was in the third house. But in May, the middle of May, it leaves that third house. But just 2 months later, the North Node enters your third house. So this theme will be extremely continued, till 2025 almost. So from July 2023, the whole 2024 as well. The North Node in the third house in Aries. That's why the North Node really loves to transit. It's its favorite place, Rahu, the dragon's head, because it definitely keeps meaning that your mind is overstimulated, but you are very willing to experiment. You are very open-minded kind of. You wanna try different things, put your hands on different things, experiment with different things, techniques, technologies, and you continue to be in an experimental phase with knowledge, with information. A lot is coming to you. Again, if you're in marketing, in advertising, in talking, in communication, in teaching, in writing, there's proliferance, abundance of such activities, and you're willing to try anything from skateboarding to whatever things that you haven't done, interests, hobbies, third house rules, any activities, So it's like so many activities. It's very childlike energy as well. And you're willing to be very experimental in learning, to learn things you've never learned before. Skills, especially Rahu is very technological as well. New technologies, new skills, use new social medias, use new ways for marketing, for advertising. Jupiter opens your mind towards such things, and Rahu really develops it till 2025. Good for developing any business. So you see the theme I said that you're not going to be so communicative when Jupiter enters your fourth house, but actually with Rahu in the third house, the theme continues. So you'll have this content feeling and warmth here with Jupiter in the fourth, more emotional house, but also the trend to be connected to others will give you a quick boost and quick results as well. Rahu is the energy that gives us like a frog leap, like a trampoline jump to something. Saturn, remember, is the opposite. Saturn, you have to do to follow the right order legally. With Rahu, you can just so you can find very quick solutions for transportations, for communications, very quick rise in fields of media, of online business, marketing, communications, writing, speaking, very quick rise even before you're ready. It can, look back 18 years ago, maybe it can give you some ideas. What was 18 years ago? I have to think, it was 2000 and... I can't remember. But think back to those times, and but if you don't remember, but just remember that again, these third house activities will be proliferating. There'll be a lot of such things. You can become passionate about alternative teaching, or alternative education, or teaching or educating someone. You can experiment with many things. You can experiment with fast reading. You can take a lot of courses and classes. You can become super... Rahu is quite obsessive energy. It's like I call it the little Pluto, but it's not so dark and intense. Rahu is like, I just want to try new things. And Rahu is where you create new karma, or where it involves you to be more interested in the material world. So you're going to like to experiment with gadgets, with new electronics. If you have a business, you might digitize it. You can make it like upgrade it, because Rahu is very progressive with the newest material advancements. You can... Of course, you can also put a lot of filth in your head, in your mind with Rahu, because Rahu is not discriminatory. Rahu just wants to achieve its goals, and it's just hungry and constantly wants information, knowledge. Only Jupiter makes sure that the information that comes to you is pure. When Jupiter is removed from the third house, then Rahu comes there, so all kind of filth and trash can get into your mind. But also you become like very opportunistic in your thinking. The North Node is opportunistic. It looks for opportunities. It's a dirty word, it sounds, but nowadays you look for opportunity and you insert yourself there and you like grab the opportunity. And it usually always is looking for material results or social to grow. It's, let's say, Rahu is about prestige, is about external rewards. So anything third house that you do will have something dangling at the end, like a reward, material reward. Whether it's a new skill you're learning, whether it's a new way of communicating, or sometimes a new language. When Rahu is in the third house, you can learn a new language. You can become more passionate about short travels, meetings, organizing educational things of any sort, learning. You might want to get accepted into some prestigious place of study. Again, you become more curious in your everyday environments. And you see, the South Node is in the ninth house. Whenever the South Node is, we distance ourselves from it for those 1.5 years. And so the ninth house, South Node, is all about theory, the bigger picture. What is the final outcome? I need to know the bigger picture and so on. But Rahu in the third house is like, just jump in, and with each next step, the path will be revealed. So it's not going to be good for you if you're working through this ninth house when they change sign from July onwards, like thinking, so I need to have a full picture of what the business will be like, or when I study this, if I'm gonna study history, what am I gonna end up working or whatever. Like, no, you're not gonna have all those answers. With the South Node there, it's saying Rahu is telling you, if you want quick results and if you want fast success, and it's time now to jump with both feet, get your hands dirty. Or maybe if you're thinking, I have to do this business and I want this and this and this, and well, Rahu is saying, well, no, first start by buying a domain. Then start by writing one blog. So the practical steps. Rahu is like, let's take the practical steps on one little steps. 9 houses, big steps. Oh, the big picture. Well, no, for now you have to focus on the small. What is next? What is next? And do it. Don't go and reading all the books about it, how it's done. Just start doing it and trying it directly. Hands-on experience. Experiment like children when they're playing. You know, they don't go and read the manual to have an abstract idea on how they should build this castle. They just start trying. Oh, it doesn't work. Okay, this way. All right. I mean, you need some planning and roadmap, but you don't need to know the final steps. So that's like a strategy for success when Rahu is transiting the 3rd house, South Node is in the 9th house. Plus, that can be time when South Node is in the 9th house when you let go of certain old beliefs. When you let go of preaching and having to always be right, you know, as well. This is our beliefs, and South Node is like, I'm not sure if I'm so intensely passionate about those beliefs anymore. I'm not sure if my worldview and outlook on the world is the right thing. No, let me just dive into, instead of philosophizing, let me dive and experiment with other stuff. So that's the attitude Rahu in the 3rd house asks you. Let me experiment in everyday activities, and you'll meet a lot of new people around you that are interesting or foreign or whatever with Rahu that are exciting. You'll get interest on a daily communication. If you're someone who is usually aloof and just thinks about big things or talks about big things, now Rahu will awaken for the first time like a lot of curiosity about the world around you, a lot of curiosity just to chat with this person, to chat with to meet new people. I don't know how you're gonna do it, but it's gonna happen, and there'll be more openness to others, more curiosity, meeting right people, maybe, and they're from your everyday environment. You don't have to get way out of your way to find them. When Rahu enters your 3rd house, it would be like you go to a parents' meeting and you meet another parent and you find fascinating to talk with them, and you find, like, for example, one of my big issues is like the snotty Aquarians. I am like, people are not interesting enough for me. Like I want to just be friends with people that are very interesting. Well, now Rahu in the 3rd house will bring such very interesting, fascinating people, different than you, that you'll get, and the passion for being involved close with people in your daily activities will increase. Plus the pace of your everyday environment will increase. There will be a lot more activities to do, a lot more things to do, short trips. I mean, skills, accessibility to travel and to move more easily. Rahu will give that. Maybe finally I'll start driving. Damn, Jupiter and Rahu in the 3rd house. I've been planning it and doing a little bit for years. Oh, finally. But then if you're studying something, you'll be passionate, you'll put a lot in it as well. Wow, Rahu makes you leave abstractions, leave big theories, go and start practicing, learn practical skills and so on. There might be South Node disinterest to traveling to long-term places for a while after July onwards, or even kind of interested a lot more in your immediate environment. And as I said, new skills, new hobbies, a lot of reading, a lot of mind stimulation will be around, a lot of practical skills. I think it's fun times when Rahu is in the 3rd house. You know, there's this more playful energy there. All right. So that's what it is. Of course, there can be some very important events that happen in regards to 3rd and 9th houses, especially around the eclipses. The eclipses are in April and in October in 2023. I didn't give you the exact days, but it never happens on the exact day. One is April 20th. Well, it's an Aries new moon. So something new, like a trip, like something connected to papers, to documents, to around that time, maybe a month before, to websites, to internet, to communication, to learning new skills can happen, to siblings, something very important. And then the 9th house, the next one is in October 14th in Libra South Node. So again, it's a new moon eclipse, but with the South Node. It can, towards October and for the next 6 months. They can be a theme about connected to foreign countries, to foreign documentations, visas, legalizing something, important events, or they can be and South Node doesn't mean things will not happen there. South Node they might happen even without any effort. South Node is like, yeah, you're not interested, but it's kind of, it's happening. But they can be something important connected around that eclipse with foreign trips, with a higher knowledge as well. But it's supportive. Eclipses are happening on the axis 3rd, 9. There will be activities there of the mind, of information, of knowledge, and so on. All right. And you can mean like meeting a spiritual teacher when South Node is in the 9th house, or meeting people from past lifetimes that you align ideologically with on a spiritual thing. Or maybe if it's about higher knowledge, it's more spiritual knowledge and teachings as well. All right. This is that. And then we have Venus. From June, Venus enters our 7th house and stays there till October. Venus usually whizzes through a sign in a month. This time Venus says, I'm stopping for 4 or 5 months. And Venus the last time was retrograde, so it means spending 4 months in the same sign, was in 2014, around the summer. Think back to that. What happened to you there? And not just the retrograde period, it's the whole complex time. I remember back then, I got married. 7th house relationships, Venus there. So this period of Venus in our 7th house, for some of you can mean marriage, taking the relationships to the next level, meeting someone new. And when Venus goes retrograde from July 22nd to September the 3rd, there can be some re-examining of the terms and conditions of existing relationship or a relationship that started recently, some important conversation, deepening of it, seeing it from a different perspective. And unless it's totally total lack of compromise or totally not good relationship, it can fall down, it can fall apart. But only relationships disappear during Venus retrograde periods that are in the 7th house, that are really, it's better that they're not there. There is no compromise from one of the sides. There is total breaking of the trust of some sort. But usually, actually, relationships are strengthened during this long period of Venus in the 7th house. They improved because during the retrograde period, the persons and both sides become aware how they can make it better. They see an alternative approach to the relationship. They, especially when there is still love, or if it's a business partnership, still a lot that they can give to each other. They find different approaches to get out the best from each other. Yes, there is a certain period of renegotiation of the terms of the relationship, but it's usually after that is way more improved. Plus, during the retrograde period of Venus in that 7th house from July 22nd to September the 3rd, you can meet people from the past you haven't seen for a while. And last time this happened, 2014, was when I got in touch with 2 of my previous exes. I saw them both within the same week. We spent the whole week together just before I got married. And this were 2 relationships that I never had a closure with, and that I still had resentments, and there was also on their side. But we became really kind of saw each other, forgave each other, became friends. So I was free to move on after that. So there can be either closure, or even for some, even restarting a relationship with someone from the past, coming back, reconnecting, especially if you're Aquarius rising from a sun, moon, or ascendant. From what degrees is that? From 12 till 30 degrees. 12 till 30 degrees in Aquarius. That's where Venus is moving 3 times, but all also Aquarians can feel that in the 7th house. They can be getting in touch during the retrograde period with people that you really love, that you haven't seen in a while, like loved friends, and sometimes more of a female nature, but someone that you love, that you reconnect again. On a personal level, they can be deepening of the love of a partner, more attention to the partnership, more lovingness, and even like talking how you can make it more loving, revisiting together with a partner things you love to do. On a business level, that can be re-examining some contract and agreements, or revisiting back to give more to your old clients if you haven't taken good care of them, or your old or already existing clientele, how to create a better relationship with them, better connection. Of course, the whole period means that from June to October, if you have your own business, 7th house is the house of trade, exchange, business, give one thing, receive another. It means that you can really attract more benevolent, better paying clients that like you more, that you like more. It can be a great time to expand your popularity, to rethink your ways of how to be popular, to attract the help of others. And if you're single, very possible time for some of you for love, definitely, and loving experiences. Good time to partner, starting from June, to partner with people. They can bring to you beneficial things as well. Venus rules your 4th house. Going into the 7th, there can be some contracts or agreements from property, or buying property. There can be something that happens in your family that impacts your relationships in a powerful and positive way. Venus also rules what? The 9th house. Oh, there it is. Interesting. Some of you might form relationships with foreign people or with more intellectual people. Some of you might have some trip with a partner that you do. Some of you might have can be very good to expand your audience if you have some educational business, some business about teaching or higher knowledge or travel, or if you have some business connected to the 4th house that Venus rules, connected to home, nurturing, caring, property, real estate. But I think all Venusian things will be more present in our life from June to October 2023. Venus is looking at us, guys. And the Venus things are connected to more love, to resources, to comforts, to pleasures. So I think that would be quite an enjoyable period. Maybe there is a certain period of the retrograde that is more intense, more introspective, that can have like some deep questions that we're asking ourselves. But overall, the whole period is about having more Venus energy there. And they can be, and then starts a new cycle of Venus in Leo, about the rebirth, of anything relationship related, of anything related to your personal relationships or business relationships and so on. But usually more popularity is present. More sales can improve as well, and you can change something to improve it during that period and so on. All right, so also more luxuries with a partner, more pleasures with a partner, and indulgences of such sorts. And Venus makes you definitely kinder, sweeter, attracting more such people around you. Doing some get-togethers with people that you consider that you might feel supported by. And now we have to, of course, pass through all the Mercury retrograde periods. Funny enough, all the Mercury retrograde periods this year will be happening in the Earth signs. But the Earth signs for Aquarius are our emotional houses. So Mercury will be asking us to look deep in more personal matters. Maybe in tune with the Pluto and Jupiter in our 4th house, which is more psychological, emotional. So we're going to be putting some order into our feelings, these are our soul houses. They deal with the astral realities of our feelings, of our soul. Some soul food Mercury is telling you to do. And so what is it? The first Mercury retrograde is the first 18 days of January 2023. So it means the whole December 2022 and January 2023, Mercury is in our 12th house. So maybe, my husband just went through Mercury in his 12th house. And he was like, I was dreaming so much about past things, such vivid things. So maybe there'll be like a lot of vivid dreams, recollections from the past, thinking about the past during that time. And he was doing a lot of research as well. Mercury in the 12th likes to research, and there can be some messages from the invisible worlds. Might be a good time to do a psychic reading around that time, December 2022 and January 2023, because messages from the invisible worlds can come more clearly to us. Can be a good time can be time about traveling, it's in a foreign country or far away as well. Despite of the retrograde, Mercury is staying there in this 12th house a long time. And maybe a time when you withdraw a little bit from public communication, when you're a little bit more doing something behind the scenes, preparing something creative, where you take a break mentally a little bit. But just be careful not to lose during the retrograde period, like phones, laptops, communications, but you're figuring certain logistics more like behind the scenes and kind of like peeking more on your feelings, peeking more on your thinking more about mystical topics, spirituality, spend time alone in the 12th house, maybe reading more, researching more. All right, but just be careful about gossip and such stuff with Mercury in the 12th house, plus displacing passwords, emails, and so on, because this is when I remember a few years ago, Mercury in my 12th house, my laptop broke, I lost a lot of videos that I had to re-record and so on, so sometimes there can be such things. And this is deception, the 12th house as well, so also be careful what you say so it's not used against you. Then the next time Mercury retrogrades is from April 21st till May the 14th. April 21st till May the 14th. So it means the whole April and May, Mercury will help you deal with family things. Buying, selling property, doing, like last time Mercury was retrograde in my 4th house, a little bit in 2022 we were doing home renovation. So sometimes it's arranging such things about home, property, place of living, documents, where you're gonna live. So April, May might be important for such matters. Or anything to do with parenting, with the education of children, as well as the 4th house, with anything to do with lands, with parents, revisiting places of home, land, places of living, and so on, or anything. Also thinking more deeper about your feelings, making more space to communicate with parents or members of your family, maybe changing the terms of something important happening with the family, some project you're doing together, some important conversations and decisions that are taken about the family, and especially more practical things that have to be done to arrange such matters. And then the next time Mercury goes retrograde is from August 23rd till September 15th, August 23rd till September 15th, and that's very much in your 8th house. So the whole August and September, some of you might be dealing with matters regarding other people's resources and finances, investments in stock or connected to insurances, inheritances, and taxes. You might be dealing with the practical documents arranging for such things: insurances, inheritances, and taxes. Remember the three things of the 8th house, or some arranging for something connected to your mutual finances with your partner, some changes happening there in their finances and resources. So there might be that you're making some changes that will affect the resources that you receive through others, your clients' money, and so on. Some changing something there. It's a bit of a financial house as well, and taking care of those details. Anything connected with pensions, banking, such kind of stuff. And if you're in such careers, it means you're more busy with such things. Also, it can mean that you're using your mind, and for those 2 months, August, September, to delve into secrets, to delve more. Some secrets can come to the surface, some forbidden or hidden information or confidential information that you have to deal more with. It can also mean that you're using your mind to dissolve some mysteries or to do some research around that time. You might be using your mind to investigate something, or using your mind a lot more, your skills to deal with deep intimacy issues, to talk about such matters, sex, trauma. Might be good time for psychology. Again, you see, taking care of the soul, delving into traumas, thinking about them, discussing them, or just reading more astrology, psychology, reading more more anything connected to taboo. Mercury was recently retrograde in my 8th house. This was, what was it, September, part of September, and I was like obsessed on conspiracy, whatever conspiracy, anything to unearth untruths or dirty stuff, and so on. Your mind might be focused on, or maybe arranging some crisis that happens and you have to act fast and arrange things, or maybe talk about very deep topics as well. So Mercury then goes retrograde for the last time in December, which is from 13th of December till the end of the year, till January the 1st, 2024. Again in your 12th house, and a little bit in the 11th. So again, you're doing something here connected to the 12th house as the beginning of the year in December, thinking about the past or rethinking about completing something behind the scenes, researching, focusing more on your soul, on your needs, on your emotional states, on dream states, changing something around your bedroom. The 12th house is also bedroom, arranging sleeping, whatever, or maybe something to do with faraway travel as well. And then Mercury goes retrograde a little bit into your 11th house in part of December 2023. So there will be reconnecting with friends from the past as well. There will be the considerations becomes more social, kind of, rather than internally peeking into yourself, and emotional kind of stuff. More business oriented, mercurial things that you can do, connections, information, and so on. So there we go. I think that's all for us, guys. Oh, I have to mention Uranus, Pluto, and Neptune. We spoke about Pluto, that it will affect the first 1, 2, 3 degrees at most, 1, 2 degrees at most. In 2023, in 2024, the second degree as well. I spoke a lot about Pluto. Neptune's not doing anything, as it's not aspecting you, because it's in a sign that doesn't send an aspect to Aquarius. But Uranus will be affecting some of you. If you are an Aquarius from 14 to 23 degrees, now listen carefully. If you are to hear just this from the whole reading, that will be the most important from you. Uranus is squaring you. The 14 till 23 degrees is squaring your sun, moon, or ascendant. Those that are 14 till 19 degrees, it started in 2023 for you. So you already have an idea. Those changes, they started already for you. But those that are from 19 till 23, 24 degrees, they are going to feel it for the first time. Uranus squared the sun, moon, or ascendant. It's a big change, sudden change. It's very sudden, that energy. It's a bit disruptive because it's a square. It can turn your life around, but it indicates that if you've been in a rut, now you can't escape, changes will happen. If it's your sun, for example, in those degrees, there can be a big shift in your career. There can be the need to digitize or renovate or make more progressive. There can be some disruptions, or even make your career more independent, that you're not dependent so much that you're self-employed or whatever. Uranus wants to do such things. Or if you are any Uranian career, it can be good still. Even, Uranian careers, electronics, social media, connected to anything new, alternative astrology and so on, knowledge and information as well, esoterica. Very Uranian times, but it can be disruptive in relationships with men, with the sun, with bosses, with your identity can become more rebellious. You can do a lot of new things that are very exciting, but a bit reckless as well. It's kind of Uranian energy is very similar to teenage energy, rebellion, and also midlife crisis energy. So choose which one, but they're both kind of similar. So yeah, you can find yourself like doing something crazy, whether it's your sun, moon, or ascendant, or wanting to be liberated from certain limitations. Uranus wants freedom, even if it's disruptive, that it means that you leave people upset around. If it's your ascendant, those degrees, it can disrupt your relationships. I had it because I'm early degrees Aquarius, so I had Uranus square. So first of all, we relocated then that whole year 3 times. We went to Bulgaria, to America, so 2 times, but kind of from America to Bulgaria, from Bulgaria to America. So there was a lot of to and fro, a lot of movement. We bought a property because Uranus is squaring from the 4th house, but that was a big shift as well. Uranus square, the moon can be, or the ascendant as well from the 4th house, can often be connected to changes of place of living, relocations of some sort. Suddenly and so on, but also it was a little bit stressful in my relationship, but relationships that are strong, no problem. Uranus, they can survive it, but there can be some distance that I've noticed sometimes. For example, one partner might be gone more or might be traveling for work for a year. I had another lady who had Uranus square her first 7th house cusp, so her ascendant, earlier, and that was 1 year when her husband had to work in Singapore and she was in Australia. That's how it worked, but they're still together. If a relationship, though, is really old and stale and boring, Uranus really ruffles it up when it squares the moon or the ascendant in particular, because something new has to be introduced. If not, the relationship can end and a new one can appear that's more exciting, that actually disrupt the status quo a lot. Or even something the opposite can happen, a new relationship appears, so you leave suddenly an old one because the new one feels more exciting. But there is kind of the stress on a relationship, but let's call it not stress, let's call it the need to renew something if you want to keep an existing relationship, or the need to cut off connections fully with someone. And actually it's very easy to cut off connections when Uranus squares your 1st house, 7th house. It's like unemotional disconnection, totally like, I don't care, I'm done. I remember when it happened, it didn't, with my partner, I was like, will we divorce? I love him so much. No, we had a bit of ups and downs because of too many changes around us, but I broke up with many business partners, with 3 of my best astrologers. They said they want to do things on their own, and they left. But I had new ones. So Uranus cuts off old, brings in new. It feels disruptive as well, but it can be, it wants to make space for something new. So new energy, exciting energy, sudden changes and so on. Of course, you have to be more careful about your health with Uranus. Usually the nervous system is more stressed out, intensity. I've seen many people fall in love during Uranus hard transits as well. It's like suddenly like a lightning, wow, and so on. But it's exciting, but a bit disruptive. It's a bit chaotic. The person needs more freedom. Or if you don't want to change anything, the change, you're forced into it, whether you want it or not. Usually relationships started on difficult Uranus transits might be less stable, but very exciting and life-changing. All right, that's for you. So do Uranian things as a remedy if you're those degrees 14 till 23. Make changes. If you can suddenly drop everything and do something spontaneous, try and do it more often. Doesn't mean drop your wife with 3 little kids and go on a trip around the world unless you want a divorce, but do it in small portions, like, let's drop the kid spontaneously and go on a short 1-day trip or whatever, or let's because sometimes people do like very crazy stuff as well with Uranus. They quit jobs, they start new relationship. I'm not saying this is wrong, but because sometimes if they do it too in a rush, because they need so much something new energy, they might regret because they lose something new. They lose something valuable prematurely. So with Uranus, it's like try not to throw the baby out with the water, but give yourself those new things, unless it's really high time to throw the baby out with the water, you know, whatever, it's a job or relationship, whatever. But if you don't want it to be too disruptive for you, might be good like to start introducing this year like some spontaneous things that give you more freedom, where you don't have to work 9 to 5, for example, with the sun or moon, or where you don't have to where you do something a bit rebellious a little bit, or something that is out of the ordinary for you. As I said, if you always on Friday go to this place with your partner, well, suddenly at 5:30 on Friday tell to your partner, we're going somewhere. Surprises, Uranus like surprise the partner with something new, you know. Otherwise, anything stale, you might be in a hurry to throw it out completely. But if you do those little things, you might give outlet to your enough to feed this Uranian urge of change, of something exciting, something new. There you go. Thank you so much, Aquarians. Hope you have a fascinating year. Interesting, crazy times are coming. Fascinating and exciting as well. But the most important thing is Saturn is leaving our sign, so it's becoming way more easy for many of us. Thank you.